Hey folks, Alex Mitz here. I've tried recording this video like 5 times already, so I'm going to settle on this. I'm going to show you the speed version of how I edit my auditions and send them in very quickly so I can send them in faster. I was going through each and every little granular thing about what I did, why it's there, etc., etc., but I think I'm going to save that for a longer form video. Just to get this out, I just want to show you how fast I get my auditions in once I'm in the editing stage. Disclaimer, you have to, this isn't cutting down on time it takes you to make acting decisions or interpreting copy. That's all on you as a performer. But as an audio editing person, this is the speed at which I edit my audio. So I'll do a read. We'll make some edits. I'm going to make some mistakes on purpose to show you how I edit those mistakes. And if you like it, let me know. And maybe we can, maybe I can make a longer form video explaining just all the little things I do here. So I'm going to take some copy from a commercial I booked a few years ago. Let's record it, let's make some mistakes, and then let's edit those mistakes. Turns out, lenders don't care. Turns out, lenders don't care about free credit scores, and neither should you. And neither should you. Instead, see what lenders actually see. Instead, see what lenders actually see with extra credit. Cool. So, I'm going to go through this really quickly, and I'm not going to stop and explain. If you're kind of new or novice or green, I apologize. Like I said, we can do a longer, in-depth video about this at another time, if this video piques your interest, I guess. So, let's get started. I have 2 tracks going on, one split. I have a high-gain track on the top, a low-gain track on the bottom. Just in case I peak on the high-gain track, I can sort of Frankenstein this together, but since I didn't, we're just going to delete and delete. Bring this up, get some more visual real estate here, turn off tracking for arm, reset that meter there, and I don't have effects turned on because over the years I've gone back and forth on, do you send auditions with effects, do you send it without effects, and the answer for me is no, it doesn't seem to matter. I book just as much without effects as I did with, and I would almost argue that I book more without the effects than I do with them. So first things first, I'm going to go to the very start of my audio, and I'm going to split right at the beginning with a hotkey. Those hotkeys are super important for getting that speed down. I also have ripple editing per track turned on, so that way when I delete this, instead of it just sitting here at the 2-second mark, it's going to zip it up right to the beginning of the file. Press the home key on the keyboard, zoom in with the scroll wheel, and up at the upper corner of this media item, I can create a fade by dragging here. Don't do it at the middle of the item, otherwise it's going to trim. Do it up at the corner and fade in. You want to fade in and fade out your audio because an engineer told me to once and I took it to heart, so I just do that. Fades are going to be very important, so for me, I leave crossfade on, and you'll see why probably in just a second. I'm going to hit the end key on my keyboard and go to the very end of this file. I'm going to see where I end here, and I'm going to pinpoint where that audio pretty much runs out. One cool thing to note is in Reaper, the spacebar will start and stop with extra credit. But when you stop with the spacebar, it brings you back to where you originally started playing with extra credit. I don't want to do that. I want to stop, and I want the playhead to hit where I stop. With that, I'm going to use Enter on the keyboard to pause instead of stop with extra credit. Cool. That's the logical stopping point. I'm going to split. I'm going to delete. Fun fact, I don't actually use the delete key on my keyboard. I have a hotkey set up to where it's a combination of keys on the left-hand side of my keyboard because I don't want to waste time reaching across to the right-hand side of my keyboard, which sounds stupid, but literally every little movement will add up. Same deal here. We're going to fade this out to the tippy end of that audio. Make sure it sounds fine with extra credit. Cool. Looks good. Sounds good, I guess. And we're going to start editing our mistakes. And the trick that I do is I edit backwards. So these little spikes here, you may have noticed me clicking as I was making mistakes. I brought a dog clicker into the booth, and this will help me visually identify where my mistakes are so I don't have to keep listening to the same audio over and over again. I just know that I keep making mistakes, and once I run out of dog clickers, I know that the take is good. So yeah, don't mark mistakes, don't second guess yourself. If the take is good, just keep going. So let's see where the last good point is. Instead, see what the word instead, I'm going to split right there, and I'm going to go find the last instead that's a mistake. Instead, see what lenders actually see. And neither should you. Okay, cool. Instead, so I can see that there's some separation here. Over time, you kind of learn to read waveform like a code. I think it was Jason Lord that said this to me, that we're kind of like Neo in the Matrix, or Tank and Dozer in the Matrix, who actually sit in front of the computer and can interpret what these things are. So I know that the word instead is here. and I'm zooming in very closely with my scroll wheel to get that really granular focus. Instead, instead, I'm going to split here with the S key on my keyboard. I'm going to hit delete, and this is going to zip up to this instead, which is the good take. Now, if you leave it like this, there might be some sort of abrupt jump here, like this breath doesn't necessarily connect with this breath. That's where crossfade comes in. Leave that crossfade on. You can kind of drag this into the other clip, or Control-Z to undo. You can trim it backwards like this and create that crossfade. So instead of an abrupt jump, which might sound like this, and neither should you, you can bring this back and make it seamless. A crossfade will do wonders for stitching audio together. So leave that crossfade on, move it ever so slightly. Even the smallest crossfades will make a big difference in stitching together audio. And neither should you. Instead, awesome. So we have the and that we need to do as well. Zoom in, S to split, zoom out, go find that and. Credit scores. And neither. Zoom in here, and neither. Starts about right there. S to split, delete. Drag it into crossfade. Thank you, crossfade button at the top. Credit scores. And neither should you. All right, and let's do the same thing. We'll go real fast. Zoom in, split. Turns out, word turns out. Lenders don't care. Oh, it's actually all the way at the very beginning, isn't it? Turns out. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete this first bit. Press the home key to go to the very beginning. Scroll wheel to zoom in. Little fade. And we're just about there. Let's go ahead and take our breaths down a little bit too. Breaths can be rather jarring. Some people say leave them in. I say attenuate them ever so slightly. So let's go find where those breaths are. Turns out, lenders don't care about free credit scores, and neither should you. Instead, right there, here's one. We're going to zoom in. We can kind of see that the audio runs out right around here, and this thing right here is a breath. We don't want silence. We want a little bit of breath, but not a ton. So I actually have hotkeys set up to where I can take this media item and trim it out left or right. So that way we crossfade, and I have another hotkey that attenuates my media item by -10 decibels. So that way it doesn't sound like I'm not breathing, like I'm a robot. I'm a human. I still breathe. So, but that jarring breath is way down. One thing though is that this crossfade might be a little short, so I extend it just a bit to the right, and let's see how that sounds. And neither should you. Instead, yeah, so that breath isn't so jarring, but it's still there. Subconsciously, that listener is going to pick up on it and realize that you're a real person. Let's keep going. Instead, see what lenders actually see with extra credit. I wish there had been more breaths in this to show you that that's something that I regularly do, but this is a pretty solid audition, and we've taken a very short amount of time to edit this. Once that's all done, Control-Alt-R, and then make sure that you have some presets set up to how you want to export these files. I have presets for all sorts of things, and also too, just whatever you export the most. If you export stereo files, if you export mono files, if you export waves, if you export MP3s at 24-bit, at 16-bit, just make sure that your presets are good to go. So that way, for example, if I'm exporting this to voices.com, I can hit presets, hit A for all settings, and then V for VDC, and hit enter. It just loads my presets that fast. I have my name at the front, project name on the end with a hyphen separating it. It's a mono MP3 at 192 kilobytes, and it normalizes to -1 dB. So when I do render this one file, it renders out, normalizes it to -1, and I can go and upload that file. So let's do this one more time, and I'm going to show you just how fast this goes, and we're going to put some time on the clock. So new file, not going to save it. Control-R to start, and let's get this thing going. Turns out, lenders don't care about free credit scores. And neither should you. Instead, see what lenders actually see with extra credit. Instead, and neither should you. And credit scores, and neither should you. Turns out, lenders don't care. Should you? Neither should you. Free credit scores, and neither should you. free credit scores, and neither should you. And done. That's it. That's how I edit my auditions. If we want to go a little bit further in depth, let me know and we can work that out. But otherwise, I hope you learned something, and I hope you learned the value of keyboard shortcuts and whatever else I kind of inherently do. Thanks for watching. See you next time.